Hey Eurovision fans, it's Tom coming to you from Shanghai, back for another Eurovision reaction video. Tonight I'm going to be giving you my top 10 or so songs which are my favourites from Eurovision 2021. I'm going to let you know which ones made the cut and which ones are just in the mix to maybe jump in if they have an awesome performance during the semis or in the final. So let's kiki. As always, you can use the progress bar if you want to skip to a particular number that I'm going to talk about. Look, I'm cheating a little bit because I probably should have done this video before the rehearsals, but I didn't, because I thought that I was going to see all the rehearsals, but I haven't seen all the rehearsals. I've only seen half of them, so I can't really give my top 10 when I've only seen half the songs. So it makes sense for me to go back in time and give you my top 10 from before the rehearsals, but then I'm also going to give you my ones from like kind of 10 to 20-ish as well, very quickly. Don't worry, I'll do those ones quicker, so that you kind of know which ones are in the running to jump up, because the top 10 I'm going to show you is already changed a little bit, not massively, so don't worry, it's not completely redundant. But yes, I basically didn't just want to make a top 10 because it felt a little bit too small. I'm going to make it a top 20-ish, and then obviously when everything's said and done, maybe like after the final show, I'll do like my final top 10, or I might do it on the Saturday of the grand final. I don't know, whatever feels like more appropriate. If I feel like I'm like really solidly in the top 10, I might do it on the Saturday. Okay, so first of all, I didn't put Malta into my list because I did the review so late. All of the songs I've had way more times to kind of ruminate in my head, and Malta is kind of very fresh. And I do feel like when you've just heard a song, it has a big advantage over songs that you heard maybe in January, like for example the Roop. So because of that, I'm not going to include them in this list, but they will be in my top 20 definitely. So let's put her as 20 just for now for the sake of it. In 19th, I'm going to have Italy, Måneskin, but this has already risen. This song is growing on me. I do listen to it more. I'm curious to see, will I get into my top 10 if it really evokes a big emotion in me. 18th is Israel, Eden Aline. I think this is the best revamp of the year. I don't know if this is going to be able to climb anymore, but we'll have to wait and see. My 17 is Cyprus. Now this has been as high as my number 4, so to be honest, I've probably just listened to it a little bit too much, on top of the fact that the plagiarism-ishness of it probably just irked me a tiny bit. I think this is going to go up again though after I see the final rehearsal. I haven't seen it the whole way through yet, but yes, this is going to jump up. Keep it, that's where it was before rehearsals. My number 16 is Georgia. I think I like this more than the average person does. For me, the song really has Beck vibes, especially Sea Change album, which won Grammy of the Year in whatever year it was released. The thing with Beck and Sea Change was, though, he would kind of fill in the gaps with a lot of string arrangements, and I feel like they didn't do enough in the first half of the song, and it's very plodding. I don't mind this when it's on the background, but if I'm like paying full attention to it, I do get a little bit bored at the start. So I feel a little bit frustrated because I feel like he was so close to being onto something. I love the latter half of the song, but the first half, I just feel like they kind of screwed themselves over a little bit. A bit confusing. I've got to wait and see the staging. It could possibly get into my top 10. The reason I'm telling you my 10 to 20 is I think all of them have the potential to make it into my top 10. Some of them already have. But yeah, if he has wise staging, which I don't think he has, he could jump in. Number 15 is Russia, Amnesia. This is another song which I feel like has the potential to jump in. I still haven't downloaded the song, which I would feel a little bit weird putting something in my top 10 if I haven't downloaded it. Her performance in the national final for me was very special, and that's the reason I put it up so high. I have to see if I just fall even more in love with this when I see her semi-final performance the whole way through. 14th, I've got a bit of an unusual one. It's actually Rafał from Poland. Now this song is really got nobody who likes it whatsoever. He came last in the Euro jury. He was the only person who got 0 points. He got 0 points in OJE. I haven't seen this on anybody's top 20 list at all. I can't think of a single person who had this in their list. Yeah, this is just pretty much universally panned. I think that's a bit extreme. I think the song is actually quite good. I just have a couple of frustrations with the production. I think it could have built in climax more successfully, but the actual bass song I think is really solid. I enjoy listening to this when it comes on. There's lots of naff concepts to it. I know a lot of people don't like him. He's got a lot of thumbs down on his video for various reasons. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised. This is my number 14. I don't think this is going to make it into my top 10, but I kind of wanted to mention it because I don't think it's in anyone's top 10, and I wanted to mention it because it's kind of close to mine. Number 13 is Norway Ticks. Again, this is kind of surprising. When I first watched it, I didn't really like it, but this actually was in my top 10 a long time, largely due to the fact that I hadn't heard all the songs yet. But I think this is a really solid song. I enjoy listening to it. I've listened to it maybe 40, 50 times. I like him and his backstory. Obviously, knowing the context of him and the story does make the whole thing more endearing. I know people in Eurovision won't know that. My number 12 is Belgium, Hoover Family. And this is another song that was in my top 10 for a long time, and it could definitely creep in. You know, I really like the staging for this. I just love the mood of this. I think it's really clever. It doesn't have a typical structure. Yeah, the best way to describe it is it just creates a really wonderful 90s mood, very nostalgic, very meandering and playful, and I think the song is just quite different in its construction and its tone, and I really enjoy it for that. My number 11, just on the cusp, and I thought he was going to make it into my top 10, but now I'm not so sure. It's the Netherlands, Jean-Gru McCroy. I really love this song, and I really love the music video, which was really vibrant with some beautiful editorial Vogue-like imagery in it. I like the song. I don't think it's super wow. I never ever skip it when it comes on. I don't massively search it out, but for me, the whole package of the visuals and the song together, I really enjoy. I have to wait and see what I think about. I have seen his final rehearsal, so you probably can guess this isn't going to make it into my top 10, unfortunately, but I really wanted to give it a shout out because it was just on the cusp, and I feel like if they'd made a couple of decisions differently, possibly it could have made it into my top 10. Anyway, that was my long preamble into my actual top 10. Now, keep in mind, this is my top 10. Before the rehearsal start, I froze my Eurovision scoreboard in time. This has already changed, not gigantically. It's not like Slovenia's jumped up to my number 1 or anything like that. My number 10 is Azerbaijan, Effendi. I really love the escapism of this song. It teleports me to the Middle East, traveling around Central Asia. I love those sounds. They really feel very mystical to me, and they take me back to another time and era. I know this is like a really cheapish Swedish produced song, but I still get that teleportation, and I get why people do find it quite cheap sounding and cheap in its lyrics, especially the lyrics are pretty awful. For me, this is an upgrade from Cleopatra. It does seem that people seem to either like Cleopatra or this a lot more. I much prefer this over Cleopatra. I really couldn't listen to that more than several times. I listened to it 13 times in total. I've already listened to this 50 plus times, and I'm gonna listen to it more and more. So I really like this from Azerbaijan. It's not their best entry. My expectations of them were pretty high, but it's much better than last year, and I think she has a shot to still be in my top 10 at the end of the competition. My number 2 is Finland, Buying Channel. I love seeing my reaction to this, where I thought I'd totally written it off because I didn't realize it was one of the favorites, and then just kind of like realizing that it had a really great melody. For me, this is much more accessible in the general rock genre than Italy is. Yeah, I do think visually their styling is a little bit more cliche, but overall, I think that the melody and that hook that they've got in the chorus is really infectious. Don't listen to this as much anymore, but I did hear it a long time ago. It was higher up and it's crept down, but it's currently 9 in my top 10. Number 8 is Sweden, Tusse. Now, I said to you in my Melody Festival and Semi-Final 3 video that this song gave me chills. Really, I think it's the only song that's given me chills this year, but I'm probably going to have some when I watch the semi-final later tonight. But I just loved some of the visualization of the dancers and the lighting that they had in it. I thought it felt really primal, and it kind of touched a nerve in me. I find the song a little bit, not annoying, but not as effective to listen to in terms of the radio edit. I do really need him and the dancers there for me to have that kind of impact. And that's probably the reason why he's fallen down to 8th in my top 10. 7th is Lithuania, The Roop. Now, this has been as high as number 1, but obviously this song was released in January, so they are being slightly affected from the fact of newness bias. So I am ready to lift this up again. I am almost definite this will finish in my top 10 because I just think it's got such an original, fun flavor. I just love them as a band, their cheekiness, their winky personalities. I think the song is really great. I'm a little bit regretful that they weren't able to amp it up in the final course. I do think the third course could have done with something a little bit different and special. I think that would make it even better. I feel like they would be more in the conversation of a country who could win if that third course was a little bit stronger. They were first in the odds at one point. I do think people are sleeping on them because we heard the song so long ago, whereas people watching on the night will be hearing it for the first time. But at the end of the day, I think the final thing that will trip them up is that third course. I still love it though. I love the energy, the spirit. I think it's a really clever take on a song about quarantine without being like, I'm stuck in a room. Very literal lyrics. And just everything about it I just think is really adorable. Speaking of songs where the final chorus is messed up a little bit, Grease is my number 6. I really love this as a hyper solid pop song. I love the double chorus. I think Stefania is really excellent. The song suits her. She's got a great vocal delivery. Everything about this is just such a really fantastically put together package with a lot of thought. You know, it's not particularly groundbreaking. It is a Dua Lipa-ish throwback, but it feels like Dua Lipa built a bridge to Eurovision for me. I really love this. Again, that double chorus for me is really what gets me excited when I heard this. I really listened the crap out of this when I first did my reaction to it. I like seeing Grease back in the top 10 as well. Back in my top 10, which is where they used to be pretty regularly, but not so much recently. And I'm looking forward to seeing what her staging is. I think this is a good contender to stay in my top 10 towards the end. Again, I feel like the song ends a bit suddenly at the end. I feel as they ran out of time. But I wish that they maybe taken back some of the build-up in the first and second chorus to give themselves time to do a proper third chorus at the end. That's probably my only regret, but otherwise I think the song is really, really excellently produced. Okay, my number 5, and I hate to say it, this has probably dropped down. It still would be in my top 10, but my number 5 is Moldova, Sugar. I absolutely freaking loved this song when it was released. I love the music video. It's totally up my street. Really crazy, eccentric, bold. One of the things I love about Moldova, they're really fun, uninhibited, not afraid to take risk persona that I view them as. I thought the song was really catchy, even though really it was very repetitive. And again, this is kind of like a pattern I've had with the last 3 entries in a row, is that I feel like if they dealt with this repetitive nature of the song and added in a couple of instrumentals to kind of give a little bit more variation, would the song be even higher for me? The main melody though is so strong that even as repetitive as it still is very enjoyable to me. But a large part of this is kind of the heart and soul of it being Moldova and being fun and cheeky and quirky. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I've been a little bit disappointed with the staging. I feel like they've seen the criticism that people have for the music video and they've just gone hyper safe. It's a little bit disappointing for me because I feel like they're not being true to themselves. That's just my impression, is that they're not being true to themselves and they're trying to conform to fit in with other people and go for serious staging. I'm not saying that's the reason it's going to fall out of my top 10, but I don't think this is going to climb because of that. Some of this being my number 5 was the anticipation of seeing dancing ice cream cones and kind of something really, really crazy, like a wow moment like Doritos had. And I know now at this point that we're not getting that. But at this point in time, I didn't know that, and that's why it was my number 5. Speaking of wow moments, my number 4, remember this is before rehearsals, was Ukraine, Go Away. I couldn't get over how consistently this grew. After I did my review, I downloaded it and it was hovering around my 15. And every single time I listened to it, I would go into the Eurovision app and I would bump it up 1 space. And literally I just kept on bumping and bumping and bumping. I was like, I loved the climax of it so much. It's got such a fantastic, incredibly unique climax of really dancey with folk. And it eventually climbed up my number 4. I think it climbed to my number 3 and then I eventually swapped it with my number 4 again because I was conscious of it being ahead just because it was newer. For me, the impressive thing about this is that I really didn't like their song last year. I didn't dislike it. It was around my number 21, number 2, but I had no expectations coming into this. I thought it was going to be a similar thing and I was going to put it in my 20 or so. And I'm just so pleasantly surprised that they were able to take their genre, which I just didn't think I would ever enjoy, and somehow made it really, really accessible to me and made a song I absolutely love. I just think that's so clever and talented that you can make people outside of your genre still enjoy your music. I just think they're really, really talented. The visuals behind this are so thoughtful and deep and sincere and really crisp. I love that music video. I thought it was really fantastic. I've just got so much admiration for the creativity and the intelligence behind this. I love listening to this when I'm in the gym or when I'm exercising. That final bit is just fantastic to listen to if you were kind of a little bit low on energy. I think this could rise even higher once all the staging has been seen. Okay, now we're coming to my number 3. My number 3, pre-rehearsal, and possibly still now, is San Marino, Adrenalina. There's lots of reasons for that. First of all, I don't think it would be my number 3 if it wasn't San Marino. There's an element of this, of the backstory of you have this rich Italian woman who is almost single-handedly created this entire entry. Like, I really feel like she is the motor behind this entire thing, getting the song, writing the lyrics, a lot of the artistic stuff. I know she has that guy Thomasina that she works very close with, but I feel like she's the driving force behind this whole thing. I feel like it's me if I was a rich Italian woman, just kind of totally obsessed with representing Eurovision to the max, finding this kind of like bargain bin melody festival and song, giving it a total makeover, making it into something epic, you know, managing to get Flow Rider to fly over, and just the whole thing is kind of so extra. It's such an extra melodramatic entry. Plus it's San Marino, like just turning their fortunes around. There's so many little stories behind the song that really give me a lot of joy. I think the song is really, really solid. I really still enjoy listening to it. I think it's a very catchy, solid pop song. I really like Senate. I love her artistic flair and all her creativity she's had in her videos. She's a super fan. You know, I always support that. Just all these kind of little things together, plus the solid song and the music video, make this into my number 3. But at this point in time, my number 2 is Romania at Roxin. I have been alluding a lot to the fact that this is in my top 5. It is actually my number 2. It is being very solid my number 2 for a very, very long time now. One of the reasons I wanted to do this video was so that I could openly talk about how the fact this was my number 2 without spoiling this video. So now I've done this, I can talk about the fact that this has been my number 2 for a long, long time. I really, really love this song. Again, it's another one that surprised me because I didn't like Alcohol You last year. I did love her 5-song EP, but I felt like a lot of songs were 7, 8, 8.5 out of 10. There was nothing really 9 or 10. Cherry Red was great, but then the chorus had no words in it. So I felt like in general she had a super consistent quality in her national selection, but there wasn't a wow song. So I wasn't expecting to have something really wow this year. I was really caught off guard when I watched the song. I just think it has this incredible, it doesn't have like a real wow, look at me, grab you moment. The whole thing just has this really beautiful dark pop mood where it just feels like it's flowing like a river, and there's no like super obvious highs and lows. It's just the whole thing feels like a meandering journey, which I just really, really adore. It's melodically very smooth. I don't feel like there's any jarring bits. I would find this song really hard to sing, even though I know the words. When I'm listening to it, I can sing all the words. But if you asked me to sing it on my own, I wouldn't, because I feel like the structure of it is very atypical. It might have a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, but I don't feel like it does. I feel like it's more ad-libbed in its structure. It feels very authentic to her. I think the lyrics are probably a tiny bit cringe, but I still find them very endearing. I do feel like they sound like it is her voice, whereas last year I feel like Alcohol You was someone else's voice, especially the fake news lyric that felt like an American who was writing lyrics for her. This feels really authentic. I love self-love amnesia as a core lyric. I think it's really clever. I think it's really cute. I think it's a nice thing to be saying to young people. It's just a lot of things about this I just find really endearing and understated. I think the key word for me with this song is that it's very understated, as opposed to something like, I don't want to pick out names or anything, but you know, there's more songs which are much more like Look at Me, Kablamo type songs. This isn't that. It's just subtle and smooth, and I just really love it. I wasn't expecting this to be my number 2, but I just loved listening to it so much, and every time it came on I wanted to listen to it again. I listened to it like 30 times in the day after I did the review, and that's when it shot up to my number 2. I'm absolutely utterly rooting for it. This is why, one of the reasons I wanted this video is please vote for Roxanne. I know her vocals aren't going to be fantastic on the night, but I just hope that she can scrape into the final. I think she's super talented. I don't know, I want people to see her because I want her to kind of like grow. I love her point of view and her music, and her and Vicky Red for me is this fantastic music production combination. So I really do hope that she gets through the final, and I'm going to be mobilizing everyone I know in Ireland to hopefully give her some points in the Irish televote. Okay, and my number 1, as you probably guessed, is John's Tears, Switzerland. My number 1 for the second year in a row, but definitely not as heavy number 1. Répondez-moi last year was an absolute gulf above everyone else. There was no one even close. This much less so. I would not be surprised if this wasn't my number 1 by the end of the final. It is more vulnerable in terms of its position. I really love the song. I think it's very mystical and has a grandeur kind of philosophical feeling that's bigger than us and bigger than the universe. It's got that existential feel that I felt Répondez-moi had as well, and that no other song has. I do feel like it's kind of in its own league in terms of being a piece of art that feels very serious. I absolutely adore him. His vocal is absolutely mesmerizing. It pierces into something in me that I find very ancestral. Just overall, I absolutely love this. I am dying to see the staging. I saw half of it and I got the Wheel of Death because of the buffering, But yes, this has been sitting in my number one ever since I heard it. I just defunct put him up there, even when I hadn't heard the song enough. I was just like, as a mood, as a concept, this automatically just goes to my number one for being kind of like high art. But yeah, I do feel like this could be overtaken eventually by someone else. But at this point in time, it is my number one. Those are my top 10 and my contenders to make it into my top 10, and I'd say one or two of my contenders have probably already snuck in. So I'm sorry that I'm kind of like cheating a little bit with my top 10, but I'm just trying to like, I had to pick one side of the fence. Either I went back in time or I told you mine now, but it was going to be muddled from songs I had seen and songs I hadn't, and I preferred to go with the cleaner, less muddled one. The other reason I wanted to do the pre-rehearsal one is then means that we're on the same page as well, because most of you watching haven't seen the rehearsals as well. So it means that we can compare our list realistically or more effectively. In any case, what do you think about my top 10? Don't judge me. Leave your top 10 before the shows start in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks so much for watching. I'm seeing the other version reaction video very soon. Goodbye.